Happy Monday, everybody. How is everybody? I am Heather Wild-Smith, and I have the delight of not knowing where my camera goes, of having the lovely and talented and amazing Miss Heather Ann.
Heather Ann.
I'm Heather D. You're Heather Ann. Ms. Heather Ann Havenwood. She is a business strategist, coach, best-selling author, speaker, expert on visibility, and she's going to be talking to us today about how uncaging your voice and increasing your visibility actually helps you to make more money. Hi, Heather. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely. Happy Monday, Heather. We had some stuff that spilled. I was like, it's Monday. That's what happens. Yeah. Heather Squared, as we called it. We met in a coaching group, and she's like, "What's up, Heather? Heather 1, Heather 2." And so when our coach would say Heather, we're like, "Which one? Who are you talking about?" She's like, "Oh."
And the fabulous Heather Havenwood is more established, and she was in the group first, so we have dubbed her Heather 1.
Right. I was wondering why you called me Heather 1. I'm like, oh, it's because I got first. I paid first. That's okay. I'll take it. I'm Heather 1.
Yes. So you were just doing a live earlier in your group. I caught a little bit of. And Heather's one of those people that kind of does everything, right? Because she's like, I was trying to come up with a title for her, and I was just like, I know she does everything. I don't even know what to put. So
that's right.
Not what you do.
Problem. Yeah. Well, I've been around a long time, so I guess I've had to learn how to do everything. For sure. So I've been online since 2001 and traveling the country doing seminars back then. And my first online company was 2005. So I've had to learn everything from scratch, but this last week has been interesting because I did that full, really went live for an hour every day for 5 days. And that's really new for me, right? Because and I'm just sharing with the audience so they understand. So I was interviewed over 450 times between 2016, 17, 18, 19, whatever. And I actually did over 200 interviews myself as the host on my show. And my show went from 0 to national syndicating in 29 cities across the country. And what's interesting, people ask me this, but I got like bored with that. And so I reinvented myself, right? I reinvented my brand in the middle, in our coaching, I've been doing that in the middle of our course right now. And what I realized in that is I really wanted to do more in the moment. So what I teach that you should be doing shows and podcasts that are evergreen. And then I was just sharing with a friend of mine earlier, I'm kind of breaking my teachings because I'm doing in the moment, what's going on now, what's working now, what's happening now. I just did a whole video on the new YouTube shorts that's competing with TikTok and Reels, right? I didn't know what the heck it was. Right. I don't know what's that. So in that YouTube shorts is up to 2 billion active users. TikTok is 700 million and Instagram's only 1 billion. So this is something that we needed to be looking at as marketers and creatives, right? So I did a whole video on that. And I started to realize that's what I'm probably going to go into. But my point in being with you is why, because you do sales, why be interested in increasing your visibility? Why care? And well, because when you're on sales calls, and I know you help people with conversions, it's going to make conversions easier, right? Because I can't tell you, I've been on sales calls with people who I don't know who the hell they are, but they get on the phone with me, they're like, I know all about you, right? It makes everything easy. They've already stalked. I call it, have you appropriately stalked me online? They're like, yes. And I'm like, thank you for stalking me. But it's easier when you've already been kind of known or they've consumed something, right? Because we buy when we've consumed. So, right. I mean, sales, but what's consumption when you're dealing with coaching and speaking? And well, they've got to consume something of yours on some platform and then they buy. And I always talk about how I'm platform agnostic. I'm like religious agnostic, but I'm platform agnostic. Like if someone wants to watch me on Twitch, okay, so
no
why
idea
not
what that is.
go there?
Twitch.
I have an account, but I don't go there, right? But if they want to watch me on Twitch, that's kind of how I see it. Oh, someone goes, well, someone said to me a few years ago when I got syndicated on my national syndicated radio show, right, Heather? And this person says, well, what are those exact channels? And, what are their demographics of the cities? And I'm like, well, actually, I didn't really even look into it because I was just ecstatic. I was in 29 cities across the country.
Right.
It gave me clout, of course. But also, why would I go, well, I don't want to be in Podunk, Alabama. I'm making that up. How dare someone in Alabama listen to me? I mean, I don't, it's like I'm agnostic. If you're in New York or if you're in middle of Oklahoma,
East Bumble.
Right, you can listen to me, right? It's like, why would I be agnostic? Why would I be care? Or when people say to me, which you've had this, maybe you haven't. If you have, you will. Well, how many people listen to your show, Heather? I'm not going to be on unless I'm not going to be interviewed by you unless there's at least, you're like, well, then just don't come on the show. So
right. Well, the thing is, like, our clients are everywhere. People are everywhere.
Especially now the migration was happening with our current pandemic. People are leaving big cities and they're moving to burbs and farms and all kinds of stuff,
Interesting. That makes sense. But, I mean, I was born and raised in a very small town, and I think I'm echoing. Are you hearing an echo?
No, I can hear you.
Oh.
Okay, are you hearing an echo? I can hear you.
So I was raised in a very small town, and I could have told you, and it's not such a small town anymore, but it was very rural, but I could have told you at 8 years old, I did not belong there. Like, I don't, so where somebody lives, it doesn't mean that they fit the demographic of that place. Like, the demographic is kind of an average,
right?
But there's always people that are like, nope. I got different thoughts going on.
I think that's one of the downfalls of marketing. Like, oh, well, I only want to market to New Yorkers, or I'm making that up. But it's true. It's like not anymore. It's like United States or North America. I would marketing other places just because anybody's everywhere now. Those days of having to be, I'm in the middle of Austin, I'm in the city because that's just me, whatever. But that's not, people are moving out, So anyway, I think that one of the things I talk about in visibility and influence is be willing to do any kind of media, be willing to get out there, be willing to share your story. So I've been interviewed 450 times. Let me tell you why I kept saying yes. And I said yes to crazy stuff because I wanted the exercise and the practice of sharing my personal story in such a way that it really lands for people. And so I practice. I mean, one guy, I remember I pitched him like, I want to be on your show. And he's like, I do sports shows. And I go, sweet, man, I'm a Cowboy fan. He goes, oh, well, I'm Packers. I'm like, exactly. So let's have a conversation about how freaking great the Cowboys are. And he was like, okay, so, and I brought it back to marketing because I love the Cowboys. And I think that Cowboys has truly the best marketing of all of the NFL teams. So I brought it back to my space, which is, yes, I'm talking to a sports freak, but I also am going to bring back to why I think the Cowboys is great because they have the best marketing on the planet, so you can bring anything to anyone. You can really bring your story. I was on a show that talks to dog business owners. All right. Well, that's cool. We can do that. Lawyers, a show that's like, we only talk to lawyers. I'm like, I'll give it a try.
Marketing, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, but you can tell your story to anything. And that's what I really talk about is how do you share your story? Now, again, people are like, well, why did you want to go on 40, 50 shows? And I was on local here, KXAN, NBC, and then I became Miss Texas 2020. And then I just won the Stevie Award 2020 for Most Innovative Woman of the Year in Social Media. Yeah, thank you. But I would not have been able to get any of those awards right? If I had not done all that work before.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I think that it's a stepping stone. People just assume they're going to go up the ladder. I remember one of my mentors said that he had a student who somehow got on the Oprah show when the Oprah show was on. And he told her, he goes, you are not ready. You don't have this set up. You don't have this set up. You don't have your back end set up. And she's like, it's Oprah, you know. He's like, delay it. And she didn't do it. And so she went on, she got her spike and then just crashed because she didn't have her systems in place. And she also wasn't very good on camera. She hadn't spent hours in the front of the camera on media, right? So that's the kind of stuff that I highly recommend people do is get in front of podcasts, get in front of camera, say yes to everything and anything. So, and I say yes.
Yeah. Well, and I appreciate you coming to talk to my audience, you know.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I want to add value to your salespeople.
Yeah. Yeah. And I, you know, I love connecting with people that are further along, you know, and I'm like, okay, well, how did you do that? You know, and I love that you're sharing that you just, you know, whatever opportunities were out there, it sounds like people would come to you. Sometimes you were going and like actively.
Oh, I pitch myself a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I have people pitch me, but I pitch the hell out of myself for sure. I ask anything and everything. Yeah, come here, come here, come here, come here. And they're like, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. You know, and I was on anything and everything. And back at the time, now I'm a little pickier, by the way, only because my time has just shifted, right? But about a year ago, I kind of stopped that. But I've been focused, but that's what I teach people to do and why. And people go, you're so good on camera. I go, that's because if you're doing it 450 hours, you know, and you learn if you could go back to my YouTube show, you can go to my YouTube channel and you can see my old videos, you know, my camera looks like shit and my hair looks like crap. I don't have this really cool thing behind me. And, you know, I don't have my executive chair. Like everybody looks like hell, you know? And so it just, but you grow. And you know who showed me, like gave me some solace in that? I actually hired a YouTube coach last year.
Nice.
And he goes, go back. He said, this is my homework. Go back to the beginning, like scroll. It's going to take you forever. Scroll back to the beginning of Gary Vee. Like the beginning. And I'm like, really? He's like, I go, he kept them all. He goes, go back. And like, he looks like an idiot. You know, he's sitting there with like a table and the camera's like way back. And he's like, hey, so this is some wine. He looks, you know, and I'm like, I don't look that bad. He's like, exactly. So just keep going. You know, he's obviously expanded and grown and whatever, but he was proving a point, you know, like, look at him. He looks like hell. You know what I mean? Right.
Yeah. Well, I know Marie Forleo, when I was following her pretty closely several years ago, she, in her newsletter, put out one of her first videos. It might've been her first video. And she's sitting in, you know, apartments in New York are like closets, you know?
Yeah. So she's sitting on a bed, I think.
Yeah. Like
she's on a bed. She's like, hey, what's up?
Yeah, she's like just filming from her MacBook or something. She's wearing a flannel shirt, no makeup on. Yeah, her hair, like she's got really pretty hair, but it wasn't like fabulous, you know, in the shot. And you know, and then she graduated to having like the brick wall.
Right. And now brick wall, right? I remember that.
The whole, you know, studio.
I was gonna set up.
You know, makeup and hair and wardrobe and yada yada. But she put that out and she was like, you know, to anybody who's looking at me and they're like, I could never do that. Like, this is how I started. Yeah. You know? And
that's where I started. It's pretty bad. I mean, it's not that bad, but it's pretty bad. And you know what's so fascinating is I'm in the same room. So if you go back to my beginning in my YouTube, you can see this all jacked up. I'm actually in the same condo, in the same room, but you would never know it because I have rearranged this room 5,000 times, you know? Like I've had this desk like in 7 locations in one room because I started to learn lighting. I started to I have 2 huge lights right now. I've started to learn lighting. I started to learn different. This is my 3rd or 4th microphone. I started to learn how to look good on camera. I started to look why I have the dimensions. Like there's a reason why I have what I have behind me. There's a dimension. Like there's a dimension. We want to the brain wants to see dimension in camera, right? Ideally, I have a corner behind me. I can't do it in this room, but if you have a corner behind you, so all these things I learned, and I've just had to change throughout the time. I would love to be able to be at a corner, and that I just can't do it with this how the setup of the room is. Yeah, so stuff like that, but so going back to, I know you work with people with sales and help them feel more confident in their sales process, but I will never forget when I'm walking around Traffic and Conversion Summit 2000. I've been going to Traffic and Conversion Summit since the beginning. And I remember going the last one I went to, which was 2019. It was 12
thing or
no, Traffic and Conversion Summit is owned by Ryan Dyson and Roland Frazier, digital marketer.
Okay.
So that's my world I've been in for a long time. And they it was 12,000 people at this last conference. The very first conference I went to with them, Traffic Conversion, was 100 people. So you can see the growth. And so 12,000 people. And I remember walking through, I'm just hanging around. I'm walking through the conference. And I had 2 people hey, you're at Havenwood. What's up? And I'm like, what's up? I mean, I don't know what you're talking. It was so weird for me, because it was the first year I really started putting myself out there and getting on front of camera and being on podcasts. And I was like, oh my God, this shit works. This is crazy. What the hell is that?
I love it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, but I mean, what my point is that anybody could do it. Anyone, as long as they're willing to get out there and tell their personal story, what my personal story is. I have what that is, and in my personal story, and how I wanted to help you, whoever's listening and watching, is how can my story help you? That's the purpose of, I think, sharing our personal story. That's what I think anyway.
Yeah, I agree. And that's how people connect with us, because there's a million people, in the online space talking about this, that, and the other thing, whether that's personal growth, spiritual growth, health and fitness, our space, business, marketing, sales, but it's your story that helps people connect with you. But I like how you put the parameter on it, is that it's you've got to tell your story in a way that people can connect with, and in a way that it's showing a path that they could also be on. It's not just about talking about ourselves. It's giving people something to connect to,
Yeah. So one of the things I do with my clients, actually, which I didn't really expect to do, but they come to me and sometimes they want me to create their show or something. And the first thing I dive into is their hero's journey, their personal story. And I always say, let me see your bio. And their bio is always let me tell you how good I am, and crap in their credentials. And I got some of that now too, but that's not my personal story. And that's not their hero's journey. For me, my personal story, and I actually go through the hero's journey, which is a time-tested process that every single Hollywood movie that's successful follows. And then every time a screenwriter goes against it, it flops in the box office. Now the screencasting, I guess, but it bombs. And that's because we as human beings haven't changed that much. That's why stories in the Bible, you can understand. Choose not to like them. That's different. But understand them because they're told in the hero's journey. They are literally told in separate. So for me, I teach them that. I do it for them. It depends on the client. My hero's journey starts. It depends on where we start in the point. But mine started when I was number 1 in sales. I was 22 years old in corporate America, number 1 in sales. Okay, at a big company, Southwestern Bell. Okay, the time. And I thought my job as a sales girl, right? So first of all, so here's the thing. They didn't want me to be in sales. When I went to my interview, true story, I was 21. I didn't have a degree yet. I was in college. And the guy laughed at me. He goes, oh, this interview's for a sales job. And you're cute. You need to work in customer service for $10 an hour. And I knew that if they put me there, I'd be stuck there. And I knew that I wanted to learn sales. right? So I was like, no, I'm here for, cause I'm not here for that. I'm here for the outside sales position. He's like, ha, ha. Good old boy network. The average outside sales rep was 42-year-old white male. And I was this cute white girl, and like didn't fit the mold. Right. I was cute. So they were going to put me in customer service. And I'm like, no. That's not what I want. So he laughed it off, and typical corporate guy, he passed the buck. Like, well, I can't, So he passed the buck. And I had this my first interaction with a female woman in corporate America in my life. I had a meeting with her one-on-one, and she pretty much walked out of the meeting and looked at Michael. I'll never forget Michael, just good old boy Michael from Texas. Michael, just a Michael. You know what I mean? The Michael, yeah. Michael. Hey, Michael. Good old boy Michael.
How'd your mama
Good old boy Michael. White boy. And she walked right up to him and she goes, give her a shot. And he's like, what? I said, give her a shot. She's the boss, right? So he's like, okay, you're never going to make it. I'm like, oh, thanks, boss. Now he's my direct boss, by the way. You're like, oh, this is fun. So he literally throws me at this like metal desk. He's like, don't like your neighbor because it turns so much here. Like, oh, wow. And here's your like business cards.
I wonder why there's so much turnover here with this kind of
I'm shocked. And then he threw me the yellow pages and he said, I'm not going to train you. Pretty much you're on your own, wench. And because he was pissed I got through the process. And so then I found out later that the guys in the office had bets, like if I was going to make it.
Wow.
I know. Talking about sexual harassment, whatever. So I ended up being there for 4 years. And in the outside sales world, that's a long time, as you may know. And I actually, the last year I was there, I ended up being number one, not in just my office, not in the state, but in the entire country. So I beat up to 10,000 reps across the country. And then this was my big, aha moment. So I thought, I'm so successful and I'm in corporate America. They're going to give me a raise or give me a Rolls Royce or like a pink Cadillac.
Pink Cadillac or something, right? I went to Mary Kay.
Right. Where's my pink Cadillac, Mary Kay? So, because I lived in Texas, so there was a lot of Mary Kay that. And I was like, where's my pink Cadillac? And they didn't. Instead, they fired me. Yeah, because
field rep in the country.
Huh?
They fired you.
They fired me, yeah. How they fired me was they took all my accounts, gave them to my private assistant, promoted him because he was a man because he had a wife and a baby on the way, and I was a single woman, and I didn't deserve it. So they gave all my accounts I've been working on for 4 years to him, and then I had no accounts, but I still had the same quota, right?
Precious. Did you send the crap out of them?
Yeah. Huh? No, this is now I would, but at the time I didn't understand all that. I was 24.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was my big moment of like, I don't want to be in corporate ever again. Like that moment. There's a moment in the hero's journey of like, okay, not that.
Yeah.
I don't know what, but like not that. Right?
Yeah.
And that was what took me into the world of being an entrepreneur. I ended up working for a company in Orlando, Florida, traveling the country with all guys. That was a lot of the conversation with all men, and traveling city by city by city. We would leave on Sunday night, come back Wednesday night, leave on Sunday. And we did 50 weeks out of the year, lived out of a suitcase in Orlando. But that's where I learned. I met speakers. I met Robert Allen Institute. I worked for, all these big time speaking companies. I learned what copywriting was. I learned what conversion was and how to talk in front of an audience, in front of strangers, and then ask them for $3,000 in 90 minutes. You're like, I would never even ask my mom that. Now I'm asking like some dude, what's up, Joe? Like, give me $3,000, So, you learn to overcome these different kinds of scenarios. And that's what took me into where I'm at today, in entrepreneurship.
Yeah. So, I was wondering if, do you feel like if they had been more welcoming in that sales job, did the fact that they were such assholes about it in the beginning, do you feel like that propelled you to even be more successful at it?
That's a good question. So yes, there was two things were propelling me. One, I had just been kicked out of TCU because I couldn't pay. My financial situation with college got irked. And I knew that I couldn't pay for college as a waitress. And I knew if I stayed in that position or higher in the big Fortune 500 company, they would help pay for my school based on, because they're a big Fortune 500 company, but you have to be at a certain rank. Yeah. So what kept me in that, I am not going to let those, people upset me.
You can really, if it's not on brand for you, that's fine. But my show, you can say motherfucker.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it was like I had to just focus because, there was a ton. Looking back, ton of sexual harassment and but I was like, get my degree. That's all I cared about. And so I was going to school at night and weekends and working my butt off during the day and learning the business. And, here's what I did wrong. Here's what I did not in that world, which I didn't understand. And if someone sat me down, I wouldn't have understood. But between you and me, it was politics. I didn't, kiss the butts I was supposed to be kissing in the company, right? And hanging out and have a beer afterwards for 5 hours. I was going to school.
Right. You didn't have time for that.
I didn't have time for that. I was like, so I was like working and going to school and studying and working and school. That's all I was doing. And so I was just focused. And because I wasn't very friendly with the people, I was friendly, but I wasn't like, hey, what's up, bestie? They were like, oh, I don't like her. And so they kicked me out of the club, versus to me, I was taught, which is really bad teaching, work hard and you'll get, no, that's not true. The person in the corporate America side, the big company, the ones that kisses the butt and works the politics better is the one that gets up. Working hard in entrepreneurship land, yes. Yeah. Yes, the one who makes the most money, they can't stand you or love you. It doesn't matter. You're the king or queen. So it's very different in corporate America. No one explained that to me. And I don't like that world. I like to be known as you got this or you didn't, it's achievement. I'm a salesperson. I'm an achieving. So I didn't fit in that world. And so I'm kind of glad they did what they did, because honestly, if they had promoted me, because there was a next level after that, and I did look at the position and I did interview and all this, I probably would have stayed there forever. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I was there for 25 years and I would have never, I just signed a book for the New York Times bestselling publisher and I got an Amazon bestseller book. I would have never done any of this.
That shittiness kind of propelled you.
Yeah. I'm my coach is definitely like, the whole FU thing you got going on. I'm like, but it propels me, so.
Yeah. I talk about how,
everyone's different.
A lot of stuff we're taught about to know your why and to know your big vision. And that's supposed to be what gets you out of bed, even on the days that you're not feeling like it or whatever. That didn't work for me. I had to find what I call my gritty why. I had to find what was the shitty thing that was going to happen if I didn't get my act together. And, people are like, oh no, you're not supposed to focus on that. And I'm like, you do.
No, I'm so glad you said that. This is great. This is freaking great. I got something to say about that, girl. You have no idea. Yeah. One of my, the Tony Robbins, what's your why? And then everyone stands up and says, we're my children and my parents and whatever. And I'm like, my mom's dead and I don't have any kids. I don't have a dog. So what the hell? You know what I mean?
It doesn't connect for you.
It doesn't connect for me. I'm like, oh, so I have to have children now to be able to be successful? I don't understand that.
Oh my God. Don't get me started on some
nothing, and nothing wrong with kids. But it's like, it doesn't have to be your why. It doesn't have to be your why. Right. I had to find my why. I had to figure out what turns me on, what turns me off. And I'm one of those people that I move away from pain more than move towards pleasure.
that's it in a nutshell. Now, I want to become the person who is more motivated to move toward the pleasure, but it hasn't happened yet. And so for me to keep banging myself against the wall, trying to make something that doesn't work for me. I knew my big why. I don't have kids. But my big why, like, I want to live off grid. I want to have like a little eco resort where people can learn about sustainable technologies. And that seems really inspiring to me, but it also feels so far away that it would inspire me and then it would depress the shit out of me. But this year, when I'm taking care of my dad who has an autoimmune disorder, and I'm like, oh fuck, if I don't get this business off the ground, I'm going to have to take care of him 100% by myself. And that's not going to be good for anybody. And so on the days that I was like, I don't feel like it, I'm not getting the engagement I want, this sucks, I'm just going to go, I'm just going to go like watch Netflix all day. I was like, no, you have to keep going. And so, I tell people, like, if the big vision and the why work for you, fantastic. If not, here's another tool. Find your gritty why.
Yeah. And I love that you said that. I've had conversations with people who are similar, that don't have the kid thing. I think that when people say, and again, nothing against kids, but I think when you go down that conversation of purpose, it's the automatic. Well, I want a better life for my kids.
And if you're going to have kids, you damn, like, if you're going to be a parent, that needs to be your mindset.
That needs to be there. At the same time, I know people who their kids are older and they're like, what do I do now? You know what I mean?
Right.
So there's a different conversation. And I think that for women more than men don't have this dilemma, by the way. I realize men don't have this dilemma. Men go, I want to be successful because I just want to be successful. And they just like go. And women are like, what's my why? So it really is this dichotomy. And I think there's been a programming. The programming of females like, well, you're doing it for your children. It's a very timely program. I was taught it. There's only 3 things my mama wanted for me, right? 3 things. My mom only wanted 3 things for me before she died, which was marry a rich doctor, have lots of babies, and always look good when I leave the house. Well, 1 out of 3 is not bad. Okay. Before she died, I'm like, Mom, look, I look good. Can you acknowledge that I got 1 out of 3 your wishes? But I was taught to procreate and just be a wife, and nothing wrong with that. But I also think that there could be another choice, and that you can actually say, I don't want that. I want something else. And It's okay to say, hey, I'm not doing this for my children. I may be just doing this for me. I may be doing this because I desire it. Maybe because it turns me on. It pleasures me. It makes me excited. And I think that's okay.
Yeah. Well, I wonder how much of it is kind of left over from, because you really think about it, women have only been working outside the home kind of consistently in the US since like the 60s and 70s. If you were middle class or higher, women, but it wasn't socially acceptable. And so I wonder how much of it was to kind of take the judgment off them a little bit. They were like, oh, well, I'm doing it for my kids. And that made it more okay.
Yeah. It makes everything okay. You can't.
Right. Like, no, I need to get out of the house and I want to have great shoes. People would have judged them so hard, So yeah, it's very interesting. I was having a
conversation. I think it's something personally as a female that I've had conversations. My sister's not married. My sister's not, doesn't have kids, and she's older. Neither one of us had kids. Neither one of us got married. I've been close 3 times, got engaged 3 times. I'm like, just can't get over that edge. Anyway, but
I married a gay man.
I know, right? I just married a gay man. And we've had this conversation about how, what she does for a living and everything is different, and how people ask her, why does she do it? And she just has to say for herself. What else are you going to say? But I think when you're talking about business and female and going out there, same thing with being visible and influence. People ask me, why do you do it? Is it just all about you? And I'm like, no, it's about getting my message out there and self-promoting myself, because who else is going to do it? Who else is going to self-promote, you or me? Or we have to self-promote ourselves. And again, that's another little thing that in a female, I call it socioeconomic thing that happens, is that we're taught shh, be quiet, or,
Right.
keep down, or don't promote yourself. Don't brag. That was my mom. So don't brag.
Don't be proud. That's sin.
Don't be
Pride.
proud. That's a sin, So whatever. I mean, everyone has their own little taste. I was born in the Southern Belle world. So my Southern Belle world, it was extremely that, but my mom desired to be outside the home. She desired to have a business. She just wasn't trained for that at a very young age. So I think that part of our duty, and that's why I'm creating Influencer Tribe. That's why I'm creating the High Council in 2021. That's why I'm creating the Influencer Growth Academy, is I feel it's my duty, obligation, and responsibility to be powerful and to have a stand and a message in the world for others. Because when I give myself permission, I'm giving other people permission just by doing it, right? Yes. And I've got to be able to be willing to give myself permission. And I remember the day when I found out I was number one in the country in my 10,000 reps. And the only women that were in the office there that I had great relationships with, they were what I called the support staff. They were,
right. They were the assistants.
The assistants and supporting with this and that. And I'll never forget a young woman who, she was a little badass. I loved her. She was in the more of the, let's call it supply, behind the warehouse kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And she would say to me, "You're such an inspiration to me." Aww. And I'm always like, she's got kids. And I'm like, me, when I'm 22, she's like, well, because you're independent. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, well, that's cool. I didn't really realize the impact of that. I'm 22, so, but I'll never forget that, because that to me is what I want. I want to have and be able to be mentor to someone else around the world. And that's why my mission is to have and support 10,000 women by the end of my lifetime, whenever that is. I hang out in Naples, Florida, and my really cool, beach house is 10,000 women to start and grow their own business around the world. I want to have that. That's my why. That's what gets me out of bed. That's my thing. That's just what happens. And I think, I'll just share this real personal, but in 2014, my mom passed suddenly at 67, very sudden. And then I was engaged, and then we had a very bad breakup in 2017 that really just kind of undid my identity of who I was. It really was heartbreaking. And then my dog of 10 years died in 2018. So, and then we had the pandemic of 2020. It's been a great 10 years. But my point of all that is my identity had been kind of stripped, right? I was no longer a dog mommy. I was no longer a wife or potential wife. I was no longer that. We had two businesses together. I was no longer a CEO of these two companies. I was no longer a daughter. There's all these things in the world of identity that got stripped. And so I share that because I realized how much those identities had weighed me down. Yeah. Had kept me small. The identities of being the good daughter, to being the good potential wife and fiance, and always making sure he was happy and staying in that alignment or whatever. And then, my dog, of course, is different. I love my dog and anything for the damn dog. But at the same time, I think that I realized how much just identities in general had kept me small. When I'll share, because it's super funny. I did a comedy class. I went to 12 weeks of comedy class.
I've done one of those. They're so fun.
They're so fun. And it changed my life, because I'll never forget, our graduation was to be on the stage for 5 minutes.
Yep.
That right. And I posted on Facebook thinking no one's going to show up. Well, it was like the whole front row. Ex-boyfriends were there, right? They're like, "Oh, we're gonna watch this," I'm like, "Oh my God," So the night before, I hired for $50 a comedy coach, and I was in panic. And I'm like, "Oh my God, what am I gonna? What's my stick? What's my thing?" And he's like, "Chill out," And what I learned in comedy is that you take like a thing that you might not like about yourself and you double down on that. Like you triple on that. So like Amy Schumer for a long time was like the single whore in New York. I mean, that's what she called herself, you know. Tina Fey, they doubled down, you know, they double down on something. Sarah, she's this Jewish girl from New York. And
Sarah Silverstein.
Yeah. And then Kathy Griffin, she's the D-lister. You know, she's the D-lister. She's always number 2 or 3. You know, that's her double down moment. Mm-hmm. So I was telling my coach, what the hell am I? I don't know what I am. I'm nothing. What am I doing? He's like, oh my God, seriously? And I'm like, what do you see? What? He goes,
do it.
I know. I'm like, what? He goes, come on, Heather, really? You don't see it? I go, no. He goes, you're a ball-busting, blonde, big boob bitch. And I'm like, well, that's not funny. I mean, yeah. But why are you laughing about that? He's like, you got to double on that. Like triple, right? I'm like, but no one's going to find that funny because that's the thing in my life I've been trying to hide my whole life. It's like, give me a break. I've known you for 3 weeks. I mean, it's obvious. Yeah. So I was like, okay. So I show up and I'm in like all pink. My hair is like, I teased it. I wore these stilettos that were this big.
Style, beauty style.
Right. I stand there and I'm like, it's like my very first line. He's the one who created it. He's like, I'm like, hi, I'm a Baptist girl gone bad. Went to Baylor, failed out of Baylor. And there was only 3 things my mama wanted for me. And I go into like, marry a rich doctor, have lots of babies, and always look good when I leave the house. Well, shit, one ain't bad. And like everyone started cracking up. And I'm like, oh my God. Like the one thing I've been covering up my whole life. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to be that, right? It's okay to be that. I think that was my big aha moment.
That's awesome. It's like
I'm gonna leave it
comedy therapy shadow work.
Right. Now if you look at all my graphics, which you've seen, what do I look like? I got my big hair, got my boobs, and I'm like, I'm a bitch. So what's the problem? You know, like well, and it's true because if you see my old stuff before actually that comedy whole thing, mm-hmm. I actually went to I'll show it to you. It's great. I have these beautiful pictures of me. They're gorgeous. My hair's all gorgeous and I got my cowboy boots. And I look really sweet.
Right.
Like the pictures, I look like Reese Witherspoon. I just look so sweet.
Well, she's not sweet when you get her drunk.
I know, right? I know. Well,
I love Reese Witherspoon.
Right. I love her to death. But like, she's just sweet. So, but people would go through my marketing and they come to me and I'm in my coaching, I'm pretty harsh, not hard, but loving heart, you know. And people are like, I'm sorry, I'm so confused. Your pictures look, you're so sweet and cute. And I'm like, well, I am, but not all the time, you know.
Right. But I can switch that shit off when I need to.
So I had to go back to Corey Howell, who she's my photographer. I go, Corey, you made me look too damn sweet. You know I'm not sweet. She's like, oh, it's true. And I'm like, okay, well, can we make this a little more, you know, something else, like Martha Stewart or something? And she's like, all right, let's do it. So that's what you see now.
It's awesome. And it's very on brand for you, you know, but I love that, like, you have kind of your business self and then, you know, but I know you're not like this 24/7 bitch, you know,
no,
you know, but as a coach, I do agree. Like you have to be supportive and encouraging, but if you're not willing to call somebody to the carpet when they're fucking up, then you're not.
Yeah. You're not being, So you have to make sure you're in alignment, right? Mm-hmm. Right. And I think, and I'll share this last piece is that when you're looking at other brands, when you're looking at the people, like you're looking at Marie Folio, I looked at her for a long time and I remember I would have these conversations, like beat myself up because I wasn't like Marie. I mean, she's super cute and super pretty and got the long brown hair and looks adorable and Jewish and everything. And I'm like, I'm not her. And I'm like, that's what people want because they're all following her. They're like, well, you're unique. you know, and the people are going to follow you. And it took me a long time until that comedy class and sitting on that stage and people were like loving it and laughing was going, oh my God. I think one of the things about comedy and anything like that, improv, and Gary Vee does it very well. Like he doubles down. Like he is who he is, and he doubles down on that. Even though people like, they don't like that you cuss. He's like, and I cuss. Like he doubles down on it so hard that you either love it or you hate it. You know, our presidents currently do the same thing, like them or not. So you've got to be willing as a voice to have a stand on something and to be able to say, this is who I am.
Right.
And if you, in fact, I had a coach before the one we're working with now. He literally said to me, you need to be more like Amy Porterfield. I'm like, there's no way in hell. Her energy is different. Who she is different. Her background's different. She's like, well, I just love her. I'm like, well, then go love her. But I mean, I can't be someone I'm not. This is me, you know, and I want to bring something new to the table. And I think that that's the crystal part of why I encourage everyone to share their personal story, because you have something to bring to the table. You've got something different and unique. And it might not look like everyone on the Comedy Central, and
that's a good thing.
Right. So I hope that helps everyone.
Definitely. So, how do people find you, and what do you have in the works? I know you mentioned your mastermind for next year, but like what's going on in the Heather Havenwood world?
Well, right now I'm you go to heatherhavenwood.com/workshop. It's a bad name. I'm changing it to challenge, so just bear with me. I'm going to be doing another challenge, another workshop here in another week. So that's where you can register it. On the second page, the thank you page, you can get into my group and just hang out with me in that conversation with the group. So go to heatherhavenwood.com/workshop. And it's there right now. Enter your name and phone number. And then on the second page, you have an option for a button to get into my group. And yeah, so I'm doing my next book called UnCage Yourself. And that's really all about the 7-step methodology to increase your visibility and influence online. And right now I'm launching my Influencer Growth Academy. I launched my Influencer Growth Formula a year and a half ago, but now I'm really doing this bigger launch, which is Influencer Growth Academy, which is from A to Z, everything you need to know on how to truly find your purpose, find your why, but also what actually is your business and what actually is your business model. So I'm excited about it. It's a lot of work, you know, as you know, we've been doing this kind of together as sisters. And I think that part of the process is being willing to just move through the different pieces, even though you don't know what the next step is.
Yeah. I mean, the launch thing it's a lot. It's a lot. I haven't even attempted it yet. So bravo, kudos to you, you know, and I caught part of the workshop, the previous workshop, and you really are getting a lot of value, and, you know, you're always fun to watch. And so I'm really excited that you came on today. Thank you so much for your time. And everybody go check out heatherhavenwood.com if you want to do her workshop challenge, whatever we're calling it. That's 5 days of incredible information about how to get out there and increase your influence so that it's easier to get leads. And once you get the leads on phone calls, there's not this feeling that you got to convince them of anything, because they've researched you, they've heard you. So
yeah.
Thank you, Heather. Any last parting words?
Be you, be real, be the boss of your life.
Love it. Well, thanks everybody who watched live. If you're watching the replay, put #replay. Let Heather know, tag her if you have questions, and we'll put the link for her challenge and her I'm sleepy. My brain is like, meh.
My challenge, my workshop.
And all the ways to find her in the comments. So thanks everybody. Thanks, Heather.